All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 2020 Southern Fried DNN user group meeting. We are excited tonight to have some old friends with us to talk about some exciting things in the DNN community and generally catch up with everyone and see what's new regarding DNN. So we've got a lot of different folks on with us tonight, and we're going to just dive right into it. Our two sessions for tonight's meeting come from Clint Patterson, who's going to talk with us about Salesforce integration with DNN, and that's going to be something that's pretty exciting. We do that a fair amount of times in my client work, so I'm looking forward to seeing new ways and new connection points here. Then we will have, before that, actually, starting off, we'll have a presentation from Prasad on the DNN Store, which has been announced as being in progress for a revamp, in progress for a restyling and a new version. We heard about that at one of the last DNN summits. So we're excited to see here a preview of what it might look like and some new news and updates from Ash. But as we always do, we'll begin with some DNN community news and information. Always, I go to the dnncommunity.org to get information. This time last year, it was pretty new, and I was reminding people that dnncommunity.org was our place, our new place to go and get information. I'd hope that everyone knows that by now, and it's more established. And we can thank folks like Will Stroll down there in the bottom corner of my video feed, Will Stroll, for a lot of work on the dnncommunity.org site. We come here to the blogs to take a look at any of the new news articles and posts that have come out. For instance, I do know that there was some excitement about creating themes with Tailwind CSS. We were talking about that at the last DNN MVP meeting. And so we can see that there have been some posts coming up about that. We have, more DNN community things coming up. There was an older article that had been posted by Don Gingold that was promoting the DNN Global event that's happening later in October, and Gifford Watkins is here with us tonight about that. So we've got all kinds of things going on in the DNN community, and the community.org site is your location to come find that. As far as releases are concerned, DNN 9.7.1 is out, but there was talk about 9.7.2, and we have Daniel here. Daniel, is there a new release coming out here for 9.7.2 soon? Should we watch for that and wait for it?
9.7.2 RC1 is there for testing, and it should be released Monday.
Okay, good to know.
I also just want to point attention on 9.7.1. There's a small known issue. If you install 9.7.1, please read the release page known issue. There's a very small workaround. If you're upgrading from 9.7.0 to 9.7.1, no issues whatsoever. Clean installs, no issue whatsoever. But if you're doing upgrades, please read.
And if we skip 9.7.1 and go straight to 9.7.2, that will negate the need for those special concerns?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and this only impacts those that are using solutions that may be using the token replace features. So like form list, newsletter, 2SXC, some of those kind of.
Gotcha. And so it isn't a problem within 9.7.1 as long as you're following these notes for your upgrade, but you could also sit tight and have very shortly a 9.7.2 and skip the issue. That's the case? All right. Good deal. Well, I'll kind of pass it around, Clint and David. Any other community items that we should mention tonight that you're aware of that we haven't mentioned so far?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
All right. There's a lot going on. We cover them regularly in different meetings and things, so it's kind of hard sometimes to keep track of what we have mentioned or what we haven't mentioned recently. But again, that dnncommunity.org is your location to really keep up to date coming into our user group meetings, attending SoFri or catching the videos afterwards is a great way to catch up monthly. But dnncommunity.org is always going to be a good source of information as well.
Hey, one thing I just thought of, maybe Will would want to chime in just a bit on some recent changes to, I guess, formalizing a bit of a code of conduct for the community. So that might be nice to know about, just to promote a bit here. Will, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thanks, David.
Oh, anytime, man, anytime.
No, so as almost everybody knows, and if you're new to the community, you may not know, DNN community, or DNN platform is part of the .NET Foundation. And, we've always, as a community, had some sort of code of conduct, but we've recently officially adopted the .NET Foundation code of conduct for all community communications and interactions. And so that's been posted in most places where it's known for us to interact with each other. So if anybody's curious about what that looks like and what's actually in it, well, David just posted a direct link to it, but you can find it in most of the Slack channels, I think, as well as at the footer of the community website. So,
as well as the GitHub repo. I think there's actually a code of conduct file there on the repo now. So, and it's linked to, I think, from the README.
So it's just like any other code of conduct, just play nice.
Play nice and help each other. All right, good to know. Thank you, Will. Well then, let's jump right into our first presentation for the evening. We reached out to Ash a few months back just to check in and see how things were going, and I bring up the current state of the DNN Store. I will still, within my team and crew, call it snow covered, and refer to it as snow covered. And when we did our DNN Jeopardy a few months back, which you can catch that video and watch it. And since it's an episode of Jeopardy, I think it's fairly entertaining to watch. I think there's replay value in that. And if you're bored at around 7 p.m. one afternoon and you're thinking, I want to watch something while I'm eating supper by the TV, you should not watch the real live Jeopardy. You should bring up our DNN Jeopardy and watch that. There were some good questions and good answers from all of our contestants. But
is it mine or his?
I think
so. Apparently, the Carolinas don't have internet.
We do have a little bit of storm going on around here right now, so I don't know. He might be dealing with some storm. I think he was going to introduce Ash, though. I mean, so I guess we could.
So this is Ash's way of getting out of the presentation.
Yeah, what I can do is I can stop Ryan's sharing there until he comes back on, but.
He has a hey, look, that's Ian. What's up, dude?
Oh, no, right?
He's moving. He's alive.
Also to finally be joining you guys, right?
It's good morning.
These time zones work in Australia, and the internet's awesome. So
yeah,
good.
Happy Friday.
Yeah. Totally. It's great this side of the world. Yeah, it's much better ahead of time.
Also, on my side, I was going to say I may go up and down with internet connection, but I was ready to hand it off to Ash anyhow. So. David, my screen sharing is stopped at this point?
Yeah, I stopped it. So Ash, you can probably share.
Ash, you can begin to share your screen, and we'll take it away. Basically, the segue being that the DNN Store is well known now at store.dnnsoftware.com, and we're looking forward to seeing what it looks like new.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ryan. Can you guys all hear me okay and see my screen?
Yes. Big thumbs up.
Okay, so just a quick introduction. My name is Ash Prasad, and VP Product at DNN Corp. Been with DNN Corp as the company for pretty much now a decade or so, and then was there prior to that. I was working in the community, so long history with DNN. And today I'm very excited to be talking about the store, the new store. Now, Ryan did say that we promised it. We talked about it sometime back, and the work didn't start after several quarters, and then the work started. So we're actually coming very close to completion. So, but you will see some glitches. There's actually some glitches right on the very home page. So I do want to caution you there that there's some images that are broken and things like that. But you will get a great idea of how it looks like and what are some of the features out there. I'm super excited about it. So now, before I actually show you, I thought I have a presentation, just a couple of slides to kind of give you a background about the store. So with that, I'm gonna talk about why DNN Store is relevant, right? I think that this question comes quite frequently, and I want to take a couple of minutes just to talk about that. So number one, very obvious. Everybody has a marketplace or an app store, right? Google, Apple. Our DNN Store is not quite like that, but it's a marketplace. It's an app store, and we've had one for a very long time. And so why not continue it? And why not, in fact, make it better and make it more exciting so that we're able to attract new players because there has been a lot of activity in the DNN ecosystem ever since our company, DNN Corp, was acquired by ESW. The whole entire change in how the DNN ecosystem is seen and how the ecosystem has been empowered. So Store is one aspect of that, and that's why it is very relevant to us. Now, not only that, but from a DNN core perspective and also the larger ecosystem perspective is that having a store gives you the comfort that you can buy capabilities that are not available out of the box, either in the DNN platform or even in Evoke. And oftentimes it's actually better, which is good. We want, from a core perspective, we do want the modules and extensions and the themes to be better so that people have choices. And if anything that is not available out of the box, they're able to buy it. And the vendors out there, are able to show themselves and also have more business, not only by selling their extensions, but also at times they get different projects as the extension is usually it's mostly a starting point to have that long-term relationship going on. So, but I do want to say one more thing so that's where sort of the value proposition for the store. But I do want to say where DNN Corp comes in and what the kind of role that it plays here. So in our mind, DNN Corp works as the unbiased clearinghouse here. So it clears payments. That is the most, kind of the fundamentals 101 for a marketplace, letting buyers and vendors come in and be that unbiased player in there, not being partial with anybody, taking care of both the sides. And we have seen, and I've been involved with the store for a little bit now. Earlier, I was mostly in the engineering and then moved into the product side of DNN. But I've been looking into the DNN for a bit now. I do see disputes happening between the buyer and the vendors. They need a refund for whatever reason, and we hold the money for a bit, so we're able to do all of that. So there is a role to be played here, and we think we're able to play that well and continue to do it. The other thing is that also, a few things that we do in the background, things like often we've seen some vendors, they just disappear for whatever reason, they're not responsive, or a big security issue has been found in their module, and it is our duty to kind of at least temporarily remove it or delist it from the store. We've done that occasionally, not a whole lot. But that is a role that we also play to make sure that our ecosystem is safe and sound. So those are a few things that why we feel DNN Store is still relevant and why we are actually investing in it. So the question is, why now? So our response is it's all about DNN is all about ecosystem. So we feel that the updated store will bring more energy, have more vendors. Our goal is to actually grow the ecosystem, right? So where we have, it has been where it is getting more momentum, but the overall vision from the corp is, and I'll talk about some of the exciting things that we are looking outside of the store, way bigger. If we see some more momentum there, I do plan to talk about those in a month or so to dramatically increase the ecosystem. But this store is all about empowering the ecosystem, energizing the ecosystem, giving more options to both buyers and the vendors. So with that, now I'm gonna, before I jump into the demos, I want to talk about two personas today. As you can guess, there's one, which is a buyer. Anybody who wants to just look for modules or themes. And the second person is the vendor. So I'm going to present the interface with both of those. And with that, let me switch over to the demo. And guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask while I'm presenting, or we certainly have Q&A at the end of my presentation as well. So now this is the new look and feel. This is the new website. It's actually running on, it looks like a screen image, but it's actually a live site. Now I will tell you before I go any further, you are going to notice a broken image here. There's this image and we're trying to fix it. It's some kind of an SSL offloading issue in our infrastructure, so we've not been able to fix it for the demo, but regardless.
It wouldn't be a demo if there weren't some little problems here and there. There's your one problem. You're good. You're good now.
Sounds good, Ryan. Thank you. So now this is now you're still seeing at the very top this banner for 2020. Now when we started working on it, we actually started working, was it, I think January, I think Clint, you were there at that time as well, right when we started doing it. So we took a snapshot of what it looked like at that time, and we certainly have a banner, and it's still a good thing to show here is that you can still have banners and things like that. But by and large, the website is going to have similar functionality. You know, at the end of the day, it's a marketplace, right? You want to be able to discover items, you want to be able to find items, you want to be able to purchase them from a buyer perspective, and then from a vendor perspective, you want to be able to see what's going on in your products, upload new products, change pricing, promotions, discounts, gift card, and a gift card, and things like that. So, right? So fundamentally, it is the same. There are going to be slight differences in some of the features that we might remove. We're still kind of closing in a few things, but bottom line, the functionality is the same. Is the look and feel and how you operate on it. So on the top, you're going to see the top modules. So 4 banners here: top modules, top themes, new modules, and new themes. This is also available in today's website, but just better look and feel. Now, if I scroll down a little bit, you're going to see the top selling modules, and we're able to show the 6 top selling modules. Now, this is a snapshot data, probably a month or so old, so this does have production-like data. It's actually production data with some testing information that will probably pop up here and there as well, but it is about a month's old copy of a production environment. There you go. So this is a test. So somebody's probably testing it in our environment, but it kind of makes a production and test. But good 90%, 95% production-like. So the top modules, top selling themes, similar concept, new modules, new themes. And what is new here at the bottom is we're able to show you the extensions which are on sale. So we did not have this capability earlier, at least to my knowledge, that we're not able to show them. These are pretty simple things, but very important though, that if you want to have a module that you want to put on sale, there is a way to do it. Now, I will tell you one thing is that this engine is backed by an e-commerce platform, and we can talk about that a bit later. So it has all the bells and whistles of an e-commerce application. The front end, the presentation needs to be still tweaked So not everything is available in terms of, for example, taxation and whatnot. Those are table stakes in any e-commerce platform. So that's all here as well. So promotion is like that as well. And that's there. So we're able to show all of that. So this is the home page. And what I want to demonstrate here is that go into a detailed page for a product and then look at what the shopping experience is going to be. So I'm going to click into the add cart. Now this particular item has, I believe, 3, and this comes from Mandeeps. I think we've been playing a lot with Mandeeps because he has a lot of modules in here and it just gives good test data. So it certainly has 2 items that are available for purchase, the standard edition and the enterprise edition. And I'm going to put this into the cart. Pretty standard feature, but again, it's a lot more sleek and easier to see and whatnot. So you went into the cart. Again, nothing exciting from an e-commerce perspective, but just very clean interface. So I go into the shopping cart here. Now there's a little bug here that this kind of keeps popping in. Ideally, it should be just slid in, right? It's supposed to slide in and slide out. And now this is there you go. It went, it's a little bit, it's got a brain of its own. Now you can apply a discount code here. You can apply gift cards. So gift card is certainly a big difference between the two. The one has a balance, the other one doesn't. Right? The discount code just takes money off the card, but this is not only this is a payment. This is a way you do payment. But let's continue with the shopping, and you can then continue to buy other items. But if you want to just go ahead and just complete the order, so go into the cart and let's go do the checkout. And now, like I said, this is Mandeep. I'm actually logged in as him as a vendor. We'll remove the data. Don't worry about it. So I can select whatever the addresses that I have put in here. And I have the option to purchase using a credit card and PayPal. So look into the credit card. Again, all the standard options, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, Amex. And then you can go into the PayPal. I'm not going to go into putting all of these in here. And but there you go, right? This is pretty simple buying experience here. Now, coming back to the home page here, again, do a quick recap of what you can see here: the top selling modules, top selling themes, and new modules and new themes. But also, I do want to highlight one more item here is that these tags and categories were available earlier as well. It is available now too. But when I talk a little bit about the vendors, I'll talk about is this a free form tagging system or is it fixed? Both of those, like categories and tags, that are somewhat related. Both ways to filter items. So click on it, you just get the items which are tagged with best DNN skins and whatnot. So that's the filtering, and certainly you have different page views here, different way to view the content, and then you can also access the same information by the top menu as well. So modules, featured. So I want to take a quick pause before I go into the vendor and kind of read into the chat to see if there are any questions has come up. Or Ryan, if you feel free to pause me.
I'm glad to gather some for you. I know there are a bunch, and we've been asking a few different questions, but others chime in if I missed some of them. But I've been taking notes and kind of bringing them together. So one of the things you mentioned was that this isn't built in DNN or on DNN, that this is some other e-commerce platform. Is this Nope Commerce? Is this, what kind of platform is this on?
Yeah, so Ron, that's a great question. Before I answer that, I do want to say one thing is that, so the DNN Store, I mean, the snow covered and whatnot, and then it was a DNN installation all along. And our friend Nathan Rover, he was working on it almost full time for several years. Working on it every day, and so a lot of investment was there, but it was at a point where it almost became, it's actually very custom, a product in itself, and difficult to maintain after that. You need to have a lot of history. So we decided to use an open source e-commerce platform, and you guys are right, it's not commerce, and it is still .NET. It is still .NET, and there's custom implementation, the modules and things like that. I don't personally know a whole lot about the fundamentals of knob commerce, but we still wanted to be in that .NET space, and so it is based on knob commerce.
Yeah. So, with so many DNN-based e-commerce systems that were out there, what were some of the decisions put into deciding to not go with DNN and go with another e-commerce platform instead?
Yeah, so without, yes, there are certainly a lot of e-commerce solutions available, but we felt that we wanted to try something that has been around for a bit in terms of a full-fledged e-commerce solution built from the ground up. And also from a team, a little bit of a vested interest that we wanted to, DNN as a large, we also wanted to understand from a team perspective how e-commerce system operates. Eventually, there will be some integration with, for example, long-term, maybe a click button install in your DNN installation experience and whatnot. So there will be integration, but also we wanted to learn a bit, a thing or two, more about just getting out of the wall and learn a few new things and see what that integration would look like. And Clint, you were part of that, some of the discussion. Do you recall why we chose this versus the other?
Are you saying why we chose this platform?
Yeah, versus what could have been other options?
I think it stemmed from the initial convo that we had at DNN Connect in Ireland when Andy was there talking with a few of the community leaders, just saying that this was open source and that it was kind of a thought leader in the industry. So I think that was the reason for the choice.
So, just kind of going on with there's a lot of good questions here, and I feel like we could dive into lots of them. So I'm going to just kind of run through some of these. I know you have vendor side to come to in just a moment too, but let's kind of go through. One just got posted by Will, which was one of my first questions too. I noticed the chat here. You said it's supposed to expand out and collapse. Who's on the other side of that? Who is managing or who is participating in being part of an active chat to respond?
Yeah, so to my knowledge, and I haven't played with this feature yet, so I just clicked on it. There's a ticketing system. I was going to go into the ticketing system. So we do have an existing ticketing system into DNN Store.
So it's not like a live chat intended. It's a
it's not a live chat per se. No, so it's slightly misleading. You're absolutely right. It's not a live chat, but yeah, it says got questions, right? So it's saying it's called questions. So you can open a ticket and the ticket will go directly to the vendor, and so vendor is supposed to respond.
It's similar to or replacing the previous store's ticket system, or is it in something external like Zendesk or something else like that?
Yeah, it's not Zendesk. It is similar to the current ticketing experience on our store. The old store, but it's built on top. It's newly built on top of the knob commerce system.
Okay, all right. So there's a link kind of down at the bottom that says, sign up for the newsletter and get newsletter information. Which newsletter is that, or what newsletter is that it might be signing up to?
Right, I think it is just a copy from the older one, and it is probably the store newsletter. I think I'm going to go back to the old one and see if that one has one in there as well. It's probably somewhere here. I can't find right now, but it's probably we haven't done that in a while. I think the newsletters we are active on the Twitter. So we do when we get someone give 5 stars provides a 5-star review. We do go into the Twitter and tweet that. So the vendor do get some acknowledgement, and we ask you to retweet those if you follow DNN Store handle or DNN Store Twitter account.
So kind of still staying on the user or the buyer side. What's the intention, do you think, when migrating from old store to new? And you may not have a good answer on this yet, but are old purchases and old purchase history coming over and being migrated into the new site, or will there be a disconnect in between? Here's your old order history and here's your new order history going forward.
Yeah, so very good question. Our intention is to shut down the old store and migrate the data. So the data migration include all the vendors. Vendors will be automatically imported, and so would be the order history of just about everybody. So we're still looking at the passwords and things like that, because I do believe the password is hashed into the current. I hope we don't have to change that. We're not there yet. I think those are some of the nitty-gritties that I hope the password work, and I hope the hashing works here in the new system as well. Worst case, we're going to send an email, a notice for people to kind of force change the password. We don't know the password because it's all hashed. That I know for sure, which is a good thing.
Changing password seems standard. You know, going from an old system to a new, everyone has to reset their password. That's no problem. But having your order history from the past 3 years or more would be, really nice. So I was just trying to check on that.
Absolutely. That is the intent. You should be able to re-download your items there. Otherwise it's just going to onboarding. Having a brand new store is just too difficult. People are not going to be as interested if we didn't do that.
So some of the other questions that I noticed that they're probably going to go along with your vendor side here in just a moment. Like one point you were mentioning kind of along the side of the detail of a product, and you were talking about the difference between tags and categories and how tags were free form and categories were specific selections. And that's kind of the way it's been in the past with the site. But some of the questions that I'll pass to you so that you can then go through vendor side of things. Are questions such as, will the product connections to DNN versions be more clear? Because in the past, those have been more free form, and a vendor will describe what versions of something the product will work with in their descriptions, but it's not checkboxes and items that you have to complete. So that you can see very clearly from a shopper and a vendor perspective which versions a module might work with. There was also a question about the difference between downloads and patches, because there are patches in the current system. Are you going to maintain those, or is everything just going to be downloads? So we'll kind of let you continue forward, and I'll continue gathering together some more of these questions.
Sounds good, Ryan, and I appreciate these questions. Great questions. So I do want to say one thing. I think I saw somewhere about evoke preferred, and to me it is not 100% clear even now as to how we assign that badge today. We assigned it to some key extensions, and now we're having, at least in my mind, and it hasn't really been fully fleshed out yet, as to how we're going to have that some kind of a badging system. And at least in my mind, I'm thinking, but again, it's not scalable enough, is it a time to think about a certification program, a paid certification program, a real certification program? Because now we have enough history and knowledge about how to detect. We are self-host several Evoke customers, and we know some of the challenges that we have with, although many are great modules, but we do run into several challenges. They don't necessarily perform very well at times. They break during upgrades. They're not web form compatible. So there are usually caching issues. One webhead has the information, and the second, if you refresh, doesn't have refreshed the page. You're going to see inconsistencies. There are, of course, security issues. So at least in my mind, is there a possibility to have, because someone has to certify it, and it's manual work. And when you certify, you put a badge on it to say that this looks good from a performance perspective. From a security perspective, it is Azure compatible, and things like we have EVS, that extension verification, not good enough in my opinion. So there is this opportunity. So Evoke Preferred we're still looking at it to see, but again, it's a big commitment. Certification, who is going to have it? Because we have to think 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road. We need to have someone manning that thing, and it has to be a very technical person to be able to qualified enough to certify something. So I'm open for suggestions. I think this is our community, our ecosystem, our customers need verified and certified modules, because otherwise it's a problem. We don't want to discuss it, but the quality of a module is, in general, it is a concern here. But I don't know how much time I have left. I want to move on into the vendor side and ask questions. Are we okay on the time? I'm not eating on Clint's side.
No, mine's not going to take too long, so feel free.
Okay. We're good on time. This is a good conversation and a good time to have it. So let's dive in.
Sounds good, Ryan. So feel free to ask questions as long as you feel the time is there. I don't have a problem. So again, I'm going to quickly go into this. Now I'm logged in here. I'm already a vendor here, but the difference that a regular user would see is vendor control panel. This link doesn't show up, and this guy here, they're all the same. But again, usual stuff. Customer info, my orders, and go into the details, and is Mandeep and stuff like that. You can do the PDF and whatnot. But I think you asked the question about download products and download the patches. So those are also, that feature has been carried over, and it is available here as well. So your reviews, your addresses and things like that, pretty standard stuff. Now with that, I'm going to jump into the vendor side, and two ways to get there: vendor control panel here or vendor control panel at the top. And you will be presented with about 9 or 10 different options. I think the most important one, actually all of them are important, but let's just dive into, I was going to say, the product. So where we would touch upon the tags versus the categories a bit here. So this shows me, again, we're mimicking Mandeep here, and it is showing all the products that we have as Mandeep, as a vendor, several of those, Proto and whatnot, a lot of products. Now, some of these buttons, we still need to clean it up, but by and large, this is the look, this is the view, look and feel that you're going to get. So go into any one of those, view, and get the details. Now, again, I think the images are broken here, but I think most important is, I don't have a back button here. So go back here, listing, so edit. I think this is the most interesting one. So you provide the basic information about the product, and at the minute, so this is where we were talking about the version, so product version. This is the version of the product. This is the previous version of that product, and this is the minimum DNN version that you require, and the maximum DNN version. I believe this is the same functionality. This is there in the older one as well. And then you have short description, long description, the licensing information, ability to change those. And then if you scroll up, you have several options. Let's jump right into the tag side. So tag is a free flow, free for all. You can provide whatever tags, and I'm looking for some feedback if you feel that this is not necessary, so you can just try it here. Now, people can misuse it, and the reason we thought about it a little bit here as well, that what people start putting, weird tags, and then again, we're all mature ecosystem. If things look wacky, somebody's going to complain. We're going to talk to the vendor. They're going to clean it up. So that's the feeling. That's the thinking we have behind it. We feel that everybody is going to put the right tags, and someone is going to complain if someone is trying to.
Tags are for keywords, and you put in what keywords are relevant, and categorization is for searching and finding. So the mixture between those two allows you to be flexible and have tags that are new or some new technology that doesn't even exist in the categorization to begin with. So free form here and restricted in the other. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's
what's already present.
So yeah, we are providing you with a fixed list of tags, and you just assign or unassign, and we can work through, right? We don't have a community or anything like that here for the store, but always open to suggestions as to what might be the right categories here, and we can certainly work on it and update as needed. But yeah, so those where you just assign or remove. So assign category successfully, or you can remove one. So pretty easy to do, pretty easy to understand as well. Now specifications, add new account. I forgot what this was. So I think it goes into the specification section. Messages is you can send a message to customers and download. This is where you specify your download links. You can add more, and pretty standard stuff. The options are the pricing here. Yeah, the pricing information comes here into the product option, like the radio buttons that you saw. And I'm wondering why it did not show here. The other items had more radio buttons. I think the Dito had more radio buttons. So yeah, so this is pretty much your product detail here. And let's take a look into another product. And you can publish and unpublish, pretty standard. You can also copy if you don't want to retype anything. And one other feedback that we got, actually we were working with Mandeep a bit earlier, is that given you look at the number of modules he has, and he updates these frequently. He updates these, at least the newer version, frequently, and he was asking for whether he can do it through API. So that's on our list of items to do. I'll get back whether we are able to support it yet or not, but that was a requirement from him, at least, to that he wanted to be able to do that, so to help him do it better. One other item I want to show here is that now this is a rich HTML, and so CSS is fine. We're still kind of going back and forth, but we are not going to let people have JavaScript on the page because it's a security issue. So that's the change. That's not going to happen. Now, also, certainly this commission is there, and then also we have a referral. I don't know if you guys use it. Does anybody use it? Referrals? You do? Okay, Ryan. Okay, so we're still looking at it to see how we support it. It is possible we may or may not be able to support it. When we look into the dollar side, I think there are still things come in from a business perspective, but that has not been done yet. So we're looking at that maybe in phase 2. It might not come over right away, but I wanted to give you a heads up there. So I think that was the most interesting item here and then certainly you can go into your sales area and look into your sales item. I want to go quickly back and forth here so that we're able to do these things in time. And your tax rates here and ticketing system. This is the same as the ticket today. A ticketing system that you have today. Your profile, your vendor profile. Okay, your payments.
There's an API key present on that vendor profile. You mentioned the Mandeep's request, which was one I was going to ask about too, about being able to update information through APIs, because he mentioned that on a recent SoFri and said how much time he spends in that, and there are plenty of vendors that are the same way. Do you know what this API key connects to or allows you to be able to do?
I think there is an e-commerce, right? Google Analytics.
Oh, that's for Google Analytics to connect in e-commerce tracking. Okay.
Right, yeah.
All right.
Hey, Ash, speaking of
I was just
payment,
about.
oh, sorry. Hey, Ash, speaking of payments, are you guys still going to honor the 5% kickback or whatever you want, the cut that Andy promised to us all?
So now, is it, now you guys know better than I do, it's 25% today, right? Or is it 30%?
That's correct, 25% today.
25% today.
Andy committed to 5%.
Yeah, so I am not sure when we're going to be able to do that. I mean, in a way that there is this itself is an investment, the one that we did. And also there's going to be an ongoing requirement to manage it. And depending on, the goal here is to not make money. The goal here is to get it going. I think if the numbers go up in terms of the overall dollars coming in, the transaction going in, there's certainly a possibility. So I can't commit on that today, but certainly that's the goal is to not make money off the store. But it has to at least break even.
So perhaps a moving target there of changing based on some results that you're trying to create or generate, and then that might be more sustainable of a change than what Andy had promised, off the cuff in a conference in person. So that's an understandable direction change because we're realistic businessmen here, and maybe he was saying something he couldn't necessarily deliver. So a couple of other questions. One of the things that you mentioned in the slideshow to begin with was, the idea of increasing vendors, increasing sales, increasing things. Does that mean that Corp is going to promote or present or do something that helps promote the products and promote the vendors? Or is it just, build it and they will come? Because a lot of the functionalities that are here are modern and are improvements, but so far they've been toe-to-toe matching from the existing store. So I know there's a functionality improvement. There's probably a mobile improvement. There's probably some interface improvements, but it's primarily a facelift, a much-needed facelift. So when you say you want to increase the base of vendors and sales, are there plans for promotion? Are there plans for presenting this as additional solutions to other ESW clients and customers? What promotion and increase kind of ideas are there right now?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ryan. So this is a certainly when we talk to our customers, we always talk about the ecosystem at large. We say that, hey, if we don't have anything, A, you can buy from the store. B, you can hire someone in our ecosystem, and we've sent plenty of business to our partners, perhaps some to yourself here, this group here, perhaps a small group here, but always interested in sending the business away, that anything that we can do. We haven't put in a concerted effort on promoting store, I'll tell you that. But I'm looking for ideas to how we can, let's get this out, and there's no point in just putting all that investment and not increasing and not following through in terms of increasing the at least visibility to the platform. And I want to partner with the community in terms of kind of at least some social media shout outs when we go live, and kind of anything that comes from the core, at least from the store side. And again, store is very unbiased. No motive, nothing. It's just one thing is to promote and help people know about the store and the products. So yeah, definitely looking to partner with the community in terms of promotions. And we do want to do promotion. We have a marketing team, which does operate well. It actually does pretty good, in my opinion, and very well oiled from a perspective of doing marketing campaigns. So there's an opportunity here to work on it.
So then when you described promoting and increasing sales, your idea was that DNN Corp is going to participate in marketing the DNN Store and the solutions that are in the DNN Store more.
Yes.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, and also, yeah.
We'll ask more about that later on.
Yeah, so I think there's one more thing, and I'll tell you again now, certainly we're recording it also, but at the same time, I do want to say here as well that we do have to increase the quality of our extension. And this is a kind of, for me, outreach to the vendors there's a little bit of a, lack of a better word, credibility or a quality issue that we don't feel that some of the extensions are not as great from a performance and security and whatnot perspective. I think we all have to do a better job in making sure that these are great quality products that are available in the marketplace, because no matter how much promotion you do, if the product itself are not good, we're going to have issues. So I think there has to be an effort from the community side, from the vendor side. It's in their interest itself to make sure that the quality is awesome, and somehow we're able to communicate that.
Yeah, Will chimes in on that in the chat really well. He says that's probably a problem that every ecosystem deals with, especially with their third-party things that are created. A lot of the voting, a lot of the review from the people who purchase and use helps make a difference there. And it'd be great to see if there are some things that DNN Corp is going to be able to help do to help promote that within the vendors and the things that are produced. That said, it's not the same game that it was 8 years ago or 12 years ago. Today, the modules are generally much better than they have been and more consistent than they have been, I would say. Mm-hmm. But so let's ask a few more questions here. There was one good question from a vendor perspective that currently when we're posting products to the site, we have to host our own images. So there's a lot of requests that are going out to external sites to get the images that we post for those product details. Is the new store system going to be able to host those product photos that are going into the details, or do we still need to host external like we do today?
So you mean in the description here that, so we do have a place to put an image, but in here you mean?
Yes. Currently they're all, current store there.
In the description stuff, yeah. Yep.
So isn't there that's a good point. I'll have it checked, but there is an insert image here. I see that. I need to double check where this goes. Is it scalable enough? But I do see that here. I haven't really played with it. I think this is it like CK editor or what? Do you guys recognize it?
It's not CK editor.
Okay, so some editor here, and perhaps something native, something standard in the Knob Commerce site. But I do see that you're able to upload images here at least. So we should be able to host it. I don't see any problem there. But it's a good point.
I'm sorry, how do you upload? I don't think so. I think it's just an image link.
No, insert image, no?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Source, description, dimensions.
You put the image source, so you can't upload it.
All right, okay.
Yeah, okay.
That's a good feedback. I will circle back. I'm taking some notes here.
So how about DNN and integration? That was something that's been talked about a bunch of that's already dead, but it's one that as we look to a brand new store system, we might be interested in and excited about. If you're talking about promoting not only upgrades and getting those done when they're available, but new products and being able to quickly click to download those. Are there plans that after this new store is released, there will be work towards integrating that within DNN some?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. We're looking into. I'll discuss that as a separate topic at a later time. We're looking into some cloud-based solutions as to what that one-click DNN installation experience is going to be. Part of that is going to be how that one-click extension installation. So the two things, right? DNN installation and one-click, if it happens, DNN upgrade, which is really problematic today. It is known to us. It is very problematic. So we're looking into that cloud-based one-click installation, one-click DNN upgrade. But when I say one-click, means you don't have to work a whole lot there. And then part of that is one-click extension install and upgrade of that extension. So it's kind of the bigger plan. I think I will have a session sometime, maybe a month or two, once our plan becomes a bit more clearer as to how we want to approach some of these. I do want to come back and report on those as to how we see. I do think that this extension will fall into the other program that we're envisioning.
Gotcha. A couple more API-related questions, because I was thinking about API integration either for updates into the store or for being able to pull back a list of all your products if you wanted to list them and show them on your website or within your own marketing as a vendor. But there's one of the APIs that's very important that was asked about, and that's currently the purchase notification that several vendors have written in those purchase automated into their licensing, because module licensing is still individual. And so they have hooks into that process expecting that API. So I'm curious, is that going to be maintained, or if it isn't present today before release, are you going to build an API that can help work for that, since it is an important element?
Yeah, so it has come to our attention that when we're talking to some of the vendors, at least there's a couple, and they said that, hey, what about the webhooks and things like that? So we're looking at it. So it's not done here yet, but it is on the radar. So definitely people have.
And good question.
Yeah, so Salesforce, they have things connected to their Salesforce and things like that. So that we're aware of that. So that we want to make sure that that is done or done right after the launch.
So what do you think about timeline for launch? And is this something where it's launch, there's a phase 1 and then further more updates and then a phase 2? What kind of structure is there to the launch plan?
Yeah, I think the launch is going to be a bigger launch, and it's not going to be a phased launch. It will be a bigger launch, and then what will follow after that is going to be just taking care of issues. And then when we have to let it kind of settle in and keep an eye on it and see how it grows and what needs to be done. So I don't believe an immediate phase 2 is going to happen after this uplift or the facelift or the new store. It will be maintaining it, understanding what needs to be done next. But I think in terms of the timeline, we wanted to release it as soon as we're able to. We've been working on it for a bit, so I do think it's coming to a close, but I think it looks like it might still be a month or so away. And I do want to send out some invite to some of the folks to help with some of the testing when it is ready, not really like testing as a QA, but to give your feedback that have we broken something for you in your workflow and things like that. So I do want to have at least a couple of weeks of that time frame before we kind of turn off the old system and let loose on the new one. So it's about a month, maybe a month and a half.
All right. There are several questions. I might have missed some more, but one last question that I can kind of combine together from a couple pieces. There was a question about new types of purchases or new features that might be present in this new store system that weren't necessarily in the old. Do you know if you're going to have the ability to do subscription purchases or recurring purchase automation? And if so, would that be open to other types of vendors to create accounts and post, for instance, support services or hosting services or other types of things within the store, or are the current plans?
I think yeah, you dropped it last, but I think I got the question. But I think before I go, I think you're asking about the timeline. I think it's important to. So we do have this event that GFERD is launching. I think it's October 30th, right? The online event that we're all part of, right? October 30th, I believe. So we the plan is to at least be ready before that, because that is the. GFERD has invited me to be the keynote there and talk specifically about DNN Store. So I want to be at that position to be able to present and talk about all of this at that event. So certainly October 30th is the ultimate date when we want to make sure that it's all there and done. But yeah, to answer your question about subscription, none of that has been done right now. I mean, those are great ideas. Those we would probably need to talk about when we're going to do it. The goal here was to do the uplift first, and then look into going into more advanced options. But I am hopeful that we're using this e-commerce platform, and hopefully that it makes these things easier. But if you guys have experience there, feel free to let me know your thoughts, if it is easy enough or not. So that's where we are.
Okay. Thank you, Ash. I think we've hit you with multiple different questions from all kinds of different angles. Before we let you run, I'll open it back up and ask questions to the group of everyone online. Any other questions that we missed? Any other parting questions that you want to ask, or comments on what you've seen so far that you want to put to Ash while we're here all online?
They're all in the chat.
We did have a good active chat for sure.
Yeah, I really appreciate the participation here, guys. I was flattered to see the questions being asked and the kind of enthusiasm there. So thank you very much for asking the questions and staying in the community and continue to thrive.
I'll just point out that there's a typo in your tagline on DNN software. Extensibility in the tagline on the home page.
Oh, really?
DNN software. Yeah, it's been there a little while. I sent an email and then reached out to the community.
Eagle eye.
Maybe you guys spell it that way, but we don't spell it that way in Canada.
Nice. Well, Ash, thank you so much.
Add hey at the end.
Yeah. Well, Ash, thank you so much for joining us here and spending time with us to show us the updated version, the proofing concept, or the working version to date of the new store system. We are very excited to see this, and we're very excited to see what is going to happen here in the next month and a half or so. And if you need help from the community, reach out to us, and we'll help spread the word and get hands on deck for testing and anything else you're looking for.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yes. Well, Clint, we have you up on screen. I'm going to go back on mute again, and we're going to take a look, switching gears here now to Salesforce related integration into DNN. So take it away. Can't wait to see it.
All right. Appreciate it, Ryan. So before I get going too far, I just want to confirm that everybody can see my screen and that you can hear me clearly. Maybe not understand me, but you can hear me. All right. Appreciate it. So yeah, I see that Ian has shown up, and a lot of you guys are definitely, coding circles around me. So I feel like I may disappoint y'all with what I'm going to show here. So hopefully not. But we'll click into this here. So let me get going. So as far as an agenda, I'm going to ask you all a question about Salesforce. And thank you, Will Stroll, for the distraction there. Then we're going to look at Salesforce platform. We're going to briefly look at Simpler, which is the company I work for now. And then we're going to look at some API documentation. My goal for tonight, we'll talk about why we're not going to use JavaScript. We'll look at Salesforce authentication types, and then we'll walk through some steps for getting data out of Salesforce, which I've outlined here, and we'll go through here in a minute. So my question to you all, I want this to be a very interactive session. Feel free to interrupt me, ask questions. I'm already getting distractions over here. in Slack. So my question to you all is, what do you think of when you hear the word Salesforce? What does Salesforce, if somebody says, like if one of your clients says, like, hey, we're thinking about using Salesforce, what do you think about it? What do I use that for? Or what is it? How do you define it?
Salesforce is the back-end operating system for your business. It's how you run your business.
All right, that's a polished answer.
It is a CRM management for customer data within your business.
All right, anybody else? I think Ian's response is one from someone who may have attended a Dreamforce before.
I do a little bit of work in Salesforce. In fact, it's pretty much all I do today.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, man. You're like, this is going to be child's play for you. And so if anybody's here thinking like this is going to be a highly customized module, this is not what it is. But anyways, the reason that I'm asking you this question is because when I first started working at Simpler, I had to learn about Salesforce, but what it caused me to look at Salesforce very differently. So Salesforce is exactly what Ian said. It's like the back end of your business, but man, it is huge. It is a platform. We all think or hear or know that like, hey, Salesforce is a CRM, you know, it's Microsoft's Dynamics competitor or whatever. But I'm telling you that Salesforce is a huge platform. It's highly extensible. Similarities to DNN in that like we have modules in DNN and Salesforce can have managed packages. And so it took a little bit for me. I had to change how I viewed Salesforce, like what I thought it was, what I thought it could do. You know how like you think about SharePoint, you know, you think like, oh, it's this, and then you see people doing stuff on top of it. So Simpler, the company I work for, is a SaaS-based employee engagement solution. So we are thought leaders in the industry. We're placing well and, you know, Forrester and Gartner and all that. It's a very focused solution. If you want a demo of the intranet capabilities, or if you have clients need intranets, go to simpler.com, email me, Slack me, whatever, and we can do that. But this is not a pitch for Simpler. I'm just pointing out that Simpler is built on top of Salesforce. And when you look at Simpler, you may not even know that it's on Salesforce. Simpler is a managed package in Salesforce. And you can see over on the right-hand side of the screen here, where we're looking at the back end of Salesforce, and I've got the installed packages highlighted with Simpler highlighted right there. So if you all are building like suites of modules, you could think of Simpler in that kind of regard, in that, you know, we're maintaining our own packages, we're installing, we're doing updates, and this is SaaS based. Now, historically speaking, Simpler was a closed solution, right? In that there were no open APIs. So if you wanted to extend Simpler, if you wanted to get data out of Simpler, you could not do that. So our product team had been hearing about that. And so what we have recently done is open up some APIs for Simpler. And so that is what, and you can see I've got here, thus my Salesforce exploration. So when I interviewed at Simpler, I asked the guy that I was doing my interview, I said, hey, do I need to write any code here in the interview process? And he was like, no, we have like a no code, low code platform. And it's more about, you know, the sales side or whatever. And so when we opened up, or when I caught wind that we opened up the API, so yes, Will, we do misspell the Simpler. I see your chat here, and that's intentional. And what we say is that we put people in the middle, hence the other P there. So thanks for giving me a nice segue there. But so I figured out like, hey, if we're opening up some APIs, then I want to try to do some stuff here, because I've done, you know, some development in DNN using web services. And so I started clicking around and nagging all you guys with questions. So warning, you know, if you are somebody like Will Stroll who gets mad when you jump screens a lot and toggle back and forth, and you might have a seizure, you need to go ahead and leave now. Also, say what?
Lies.
Yes. So just wanted to put that out there. And also, you know, we're going to be jumping around a lot and stuff will probably break. So all those disclaimers. So let's talk about Simpler and Swagger docs, right? So I'm going to minimize this, and we will toggle around here to Simpler. So this is Simpler, right? This is the intranet. And if you look at it, I mean, you wouldn't think this is Salesforce, right? You're like, hey, this is just some kind of application, unless you went up in here into the visualforce.com and the URL. So the good news is that with intranets, you know, SEO is not a big deal. So it doesn't matter if you want to do URL rewriting. Notice that if I click on the profile here and I click Salesforce, this is going to open us up into Salesforce. If I go to setup, we're basically seeing the underlying platform here. You can see the users that exist in the system. You can see how they have the licenses applied, like Simpler, Standard, Salesforce User. And what I want to point out is if we scroll down here to install packages, you'll notice where I've got Simpler installed as this package. So if I click this link here, and we'll just click it, it just takes me right back into Simpler. So I just want to kind of show you like the back end of the solution. But we're talking about APIs and Swagger docs, right? So if I come in and update the URL and I type in API Explorer, you'll notice that we are exposing some APIs, right? So we have way more APIs than we see here. These are just the ones that we're currently exposing. So in a sense, I think it would be neat. And I don't know if we could or could not do this in DNN, but when you install DNN platform, if you had something like /API, if we could expose what APIs were available, we'd probably have too many to do that, right? But it could be neat, right? So you guys are probably familiar with Swagger docs, right? But while we're here, I'm just going to play around with this a little bit and show you what will happen. So for example, I'm going to click on this event. So the reason I'm clicking on this event and my South Carolina internet is showing off here is I simply want to get the event ID out of this event when it loads up here. So this is like a town hall with the CTO or whatever, and this is the ID for this event, right? So I'm just going to copy that. We're going to go back to Swagger docs, and again, these are Restful Web Services, and notice that we've got the event-related APIs. And if I click on Get, you'll notice that, hey, it requires the ID of an event. So if I click Try It Out, I'll come in here and just paste that ID and click Execute. Notice that we are getting back that 200, so success, we're getting this JSON object, right? Now, the formatting isn't great, it's going off of the screen, but nevertheless, you can see like, hey, we came up and we hit this specific URL and we passed in this ID, and we were able to get a JSON object back from that event. So, instantly when I saw this, I was like, hey, I think I kind of understand what that means. If I can hit that endpoint, then I can get this data from outside of Simpler, and then I can do stuff. But what I didn't know at this point was that, oh yeah, I'm already authenticated into the system, and I'm going to have to jump through some authentication hoops before I can actually achieve my goal. But that is, one thing that I like. So I will just clear that out, cancel that, and just show that, we've got a lot of these APIs, and the most used API is going to be the alerts and the notifications. So when we come in here and look at the notifications, notice that, you can see where I was having fun here, right? And, just saying like, hey, here's a notification from Postman, and just doing some crazy stuff. But the point is, our notification system, we refer to this as a unified notification system. Our goal as an intranet is to be that virtual headquarters, that connective glue, that one-stop shop for your employees, where they log in and they can find any information they want to find. They can find people, access to applications if they want to have one-click to apps. But in order to do that, you have to be able to fire notifications from external applications, right? So maybe somebody submitted a ticket in ServiceNow, and you need to take action on that item. If that's the case, you can fire a notification inside of Simpler from these external applications, in that case, ServiceNow. And then I, as a user, will know, hey, I need to go take action. I can click on it, and then I'll go and, take action on the item. So when you think about that, this is essentially like a hub, right? And so you can tie in all kind of information just with this notification API. And so let me get back to my PowerPoint before I start preaching on y'all too much. Let me see what the next slide is here. Oh man, yeah. So the Swagger docs, I really love those because they are interactive, and you can get a lot of information. And I guess if I would have kept scrolling down, you can see the models that of the data, the objects. And so with these RESTful Web API endpoints, you can perform CRUD operations on simpler objects. Now, one thing that Simpler is very opinionated on and passionate about is that you're not going to update or change the experience. We are a research-based organization, and we will let you use the API to do whatever you want to do, but you're not going to come in here and change the experience that our designers are so passionate about. So the Swagger docs being interactive, I love them, and I'm like always nagging our guys to create more. So my goal was to, hey, I want to get data out of Simpler, which Simpler equals Salesforce in this sense. And really the hardest part is just getting through the authentication. Once you're authenticated, it's just REST-based web services. And I know I'm preaching to the choir with a lot of you guys, right? So if you can just get authenticated, then man, you can, make these, web API endpoint requests and do whatever you want to do. So that was kind of my goal when I started, and we'll talk through it a little bit. So, as somebody like me who's like coming to things from like a front end perspective, administrator perspective, I don't want to write C# and do all that if I don't have to, right? If I can do JavaScript, let's just do it with JavaScript. So I started down the road using JavaScript, and I got a long way, and but I hit a roadblock. And so I started nagging some of our senior engineers, and I'm like, hey man, I can't get past this. Like, what's the issue? And he was like, oh yeah, we're built on what's called visual force pages. So just like DNN Module would have user controls, Simpler is built on visual force pages, and they require server-side code in order, to get information or data from their endpoints, right? So right then JavaScript was out the door, but the guy told me, he was like, hey, I really like what you're doing. I like what you're trying to do, and you're like hacking on our platform. And he was like, keep doing what you're doing, but you need to do it on server-side code. And I'm like, God, now I'm like, got to drop back, start over, square zero, or whatever. So, but the reason was it was all about security, right? And Salesforce is known for having, good security, good scalability, and that's why Ian and those guys are building their businesses on top of it. So basically, if you're looking to do stuff with Salesforce, you can use JavaScript, but you would probably do yourself a favor to not go the JavaScript route. All right, so Salesforce authentication types, and I put a note here. You have to use HTTPS in order to deal with Salesforce, right? So if you're trying to hit it from an insecure site, it is just going to reject it from the get-go. And so I was wanting to do this on my personal site, so I had to upgrade it and get some SSL certs, which Poindexter helped me out with. So that was just a takeaway for you all. So Salesforce supports multiple authentication scenarios. And so we'll toggle, I've got some pages open here. So I figured like, hey, I need to authenticate, like there's one or two ways. Man, Salesforce has tons of different ways that you can authenticate. Like, hey, here's OAuth 2.0 web server for our web app integration. They got IoT stuff right here. So it may take you a little while just to figure out what you even need to use. I know it did me. And yeah, sorry, Stroll, I'm preaching. Pass the offering plate around. But so anyways, I was wanting to create an integrated web app. So if you click on that link, it'll open up this this page. And so this is, and our senior engineer, he sent me to this link. He's like, this is what you need to do. And so as you can imagine, I took like a deep breath. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So it's really just a dance that you're doing with these authorization code. And we're going to walk through all of this. Notice that you are going to be hitting a specific endpoint, and then you'll be passing in a client ID and a redirect URI, and that's like your callback URL. And then you've got a response type of code. And they also support multiple, I guess, grant types that you'll see. And so I was like all into these documents trying to figure out, what I needed to do. But I feel like we've all seen these screens, right? You go to log in, and then Salesforce or Google or Facebook, they say, hey, do you want to allow access, right? So we're laying out that specific URL endpoint, which would, that we created up here, and you'll see it in code in a little bit. And once you send the user that way, which is essentially going to Salesforce, the user clicks allow. These things that you see here are called scopes, and that is like, what do you want this application to be able to do? Do you want it to be able to change your personal information, change data in the web app? And you'll see all that in a little bit too. Once you click allow, then the system, Salesforce, is going to return you back to whatever your callback URL is, and it is going to pass in this code. You need that code to then be able to get the access token. So that access token is your main goal that you need in order to be able to authenticate. So you're just like going through these steps, right? And when you get that access token, then you'll see where you're passing in, again, the client ID and the secret. And once you complete this process, then you're able to get the token that you need, which would be the renewal token, right? Now, notice that grant type. This is what I was talking about earlier, this authorization code. You can mess this stuff up very easily. All right, Will saying he wants a bunch of Chuck E. Cheese tokens, and he can't use that anymore. No, Chuck E. Cheese, I think, is going bankrupt here with all the COVID stuff. So anyways, grant type is important. I spent a couple of days going in circles around that, trying to figure out what I needed to do. So I know that like this was fast and we talked through it, but we're going to see it in code here in a minute. And once you do everything correctly, you get that access token and the ID token. And the refresh token was what I was thinking about earlier. So let's see. Let me get back to the PowerPoint. So the thing is, in order to tell Salesforce that it needs to be able to like work with or deal with your web application, you have to do something in Salesforce, and that is called creating a connected app. Once you create that connected app, it's just jumping through those authentication steps, and then it's Restful Web Services. So I feel like all you on here will already understand all this stuff. And what we'll do is we'll just show the creating a connected app side in Salesforce. So what we'll do is we'll walk through this screen in a demo. And the reason we'll do it now and then come back to slides is because once you create a connected app, it says, hey, you've got 2 to 10 more minutes that you have to wait before this is ready. So I'm going to go back to simpler, and we will launch into Salesforce again. Anybody got any questions up until this point? Any good jokes been put here?
You're hard on yourself, Clint. You're doing just fine. It's all good and we're following.
Okay. All right. Let me.
Clint, what's the database that powers Salesforce? Are they agnostic, or do they have their own? Or
I honestly don't know. I think that Salesforce is built on top of some like Oracle massive infrastructure. Ian would probably.
It's Oracle.
Is it?
I thought it was Oracle, but
it was going to be my guess, by the way. It was Oracle.
Okay, maybe that's why they bought TikTok or whatever. They got all that money. All right, so we are in Salesforce here, and what I'm going to do is click Setup. Now, I should also mention this is Salesforce Classic, and Classic means like the UI, the experience. If I click Switch to Lightning Experience, this is the new, updated, modern Salesforce. This is what they're trying to push everybody to. It's kind of like I don't know, some new design technique. You could think like trying to push everybody to .NET Core, but everybody's still using, .NET. So I'm not going to spend much time here, but I'll just, in case somebody was wondering, why is he not in Lightning? It's because I feel more comfortable in Classic. So we're going to go back to Classic here. So we want to create a connected app. I click setup, and this is, you know, kind of the back end system here. I'm the system administrator. And you can easily come in here in the quick find and start typing stuff. Like you could say, you know, company info, and then it instantly filters down. But what we're going to do is scroll down to create, and then we're actually, let me look at the apps. I think this is the right screen. Yeah. All right. So this is like where you can create apps, and obviously we're going to look here at the bottom, connected apps. So I have built 3 of these. One was a notification, so I fired a notification in Simpler, and then the other was a door. So I connected my door. So imagine a scenario using IoT, like if you had a server room and you wanted to monitor the door. I made it to when the door was open, it would fire a notification in Simpler. And then the Simpler API app was the first one that I created. And so let's go ahead and click new. So we will create a new connected app, and we want to give this connected app a name. So we got to enter some info. So I'm going to call this Southern Fried _DNN. And then you could enter some info. So we'll just say clint@simpler.com. And we'll leave all this blank. Now, we do need to enable the OAuth settings. This is important. And notice the callback URL. So we are going to use this clintpatterson.com/simpler. So this is the module that I have coded. And we're going to put that URL as the callback URL. And then notice we've got the selected auth scope. So that screen I showed a while ago when I said everybody is used to these screens where you have to click allow access, whatever we select in here is what is going to be shown in that allow access screen. And so for this one, there's specific things we need to have. So we're going to go manage our API, custom permissions, basic info, and let's see, access data via web, custom applications, Visual Force. So I believe these are the only ones I need. And so I should be good there. And then let's see, I think that's all that I actually need to do. So watch what happens when I click save. It says, hey, this is going to take 2 to 10 minutes, right? So I'll go ahead and click continue. And when we go back, notice what happens. This thing has created a consumer key for me. It has also clicked a consumer or created a consumer secret. Now, people like Stroll have already screenshotted this, and he's already trying to hit my app. You know, that's why I'll delete it here in a little bit. And this is a demo environment, so feel free. But this is what's going to be important here in a little bit. So while this is being created, and let me see back in my PowerPoint what we had. So yeah, we're going to create a DNN module. And before we actually look into that code, I do want to bring up Postman, and we'll talk a little bit about this on this notifications API. So, well, actually, you know, we'll do that event too. So just like I was able to, in the Swagger docs, I was able to hit that event ID and get that JSON back. You know, that is, that's impressive, but yet, like I said, we're inside of the system, right? So we need to be able to do this externally. So if I bring up Postman, and let me, there goes my screen jumping. Oh, Postman's down here on this screen. Everybody is probably familiar with Postman here, but this is a tool you can use to make requests and you know, do testing. So obviously we are not logged into Simpler here, but I do have this access token, which I generated before the meetup here. And so if we make this request, you know, we're getting the JSON data back, you know, for this customer meet and greet. So let's look at, this is the town hall. So if we come in here and copy this endpoint or this ID, notice the URL that we're hitting here, we're passing in, you know, some parameters. So we are looking at the site add event data. So this is the event endpoint. And if I update this right here, well, maybe I need to do it in there. And then we just paste it in and click send. Sorry, I think you hear a 2-year-old toddler yelling in the background. So notice here's that information: title, town hall, CTO, Jim Hunt. So we're able to get data back. So, but what about if we want to make a post, right? So let's live on the edge a little bit and see if I can break some stuff. So this alert. So let's say we want to create an alert, and that is a post. We'll say we want to try it out. Now, we're going to do this from Swagger Docs first, and then we'll do it from Postman. So the alert is something that's used for, like, if the office was shut down for whatever reason. So we need to come in here and is scheduled. I'm going to change this to true. So we'll say this, and we'll say this is an alert message from Sofried, right? Is dismissible. We'll say that is going to be true as well. And let me do something over here. Looks like I'm clearing out some stuff on my mobile device, and you'll see why here in a little bit. But all right, so is dismissible is true. Has URL, we're going to say it's false. Recipient, everyone. Now we got to do some magic on the date here. So display from, so we can schedule these. So we're going to say this is going to display from, what's today, the 17th. We'll say from the 16th up until the 18th, right? All right, so hopefully I did that right. And what I'm going to do is click execute.
What's your month? Your month is
Oh, yeah. Good catch. So that is gonna fail. Or it may succeed. So it succeeded, but it didn't do right. So let me go back and change that to 9. I appreciate that. All right, so we will execute this one. And so let's see if that one worked. That was success. So I'm going to bring over the mobile device here. And so this is the simpler app. And we have not received the push notification yet. I'm going to refresh this page, and we'll see if it. Yeah, so now you see that alert. So this is an alert message from Sofried, right? And it should come as a push notification on the mobile device. Sometimes it just takes a little bit. I won't make y'all wait on it. But the point is that, we're able to create an alert that is dismissible right here. So we can go in and dismiss it, or we could come in here and just look at the alerts, and we'll see that one that I created in the past tense there that was messed up here. So this would be like, imagine being able to create an alert from a weather system, or, from any external app. You could do that, right? So we just did this from Swagger. Now let's try to do the same thing from Postman. So what we'll do is we'll just copy that URL that we created, and we'll bring up Postman, and we'll say that we want to do a new one, and we'll just say we're going to do a post. We'll paste that URL in, and the authorization, I need to go bearer, and then that token is already there. So here in the body, I need to pass in some JSON, which we know is right here. So let me paste that in. So this one, we're just going to call this one Sofried 2. So the difference here is that in one scenario, we're already logged in. But in this scenario, we're not logged in, but we're passing in that authorization and bearer token. So let's see if this one actually works. Oh, got an error, missing required parameters. So, all right, this is, okay, I won't troubleshoot this here in front of everybody, but let me look at another post and just see right quick. No, it looks like it's, yeah, I don't know why, but we should be able to do that. So when did I create this? 7:59. So we should be getting close to this working. All right, now we'll go back. So I wanted to create a DNN module that got this data out of Salesforce, and did something with it. So what's the first thing that we do when we want to create a module? Shout outs to Stroller here. Here's your plug, Yo Appendo DNN. Will, is there any new releases of Yo Appendo that you want to talk about? Shameless plug.
Yeah, there's been 2 new releases recently, and the big deal is that it's raised the support for the minimum version of DNN that it starts with. So, and then also all the projects that you create are using NuGet instead of local references.
All right, well, there you have it. So I nagged Stroll and I'm like, hey, I need to do this Yo Appendo stuff. So I started doing some Yo Appendo DNN, and I made a module. And what's the first thing we had to do? Get that authorization code and access token, right? So what we'll do is walk through the DNN module code that I use, and we had already done a little bit of Postman. So let's go back to my website, and we'll bring up Visual Studio Code, which will make, Visual Studio, which will make a lot of y'all feel good. So let's just walk through what this thing does. So the very first thing I wanted to do was we have a client who wants to get information from their intranet and put it on digital signage. So they have, like, massive LED screens or TVs in the entrance or in a cafeteria, and they want to get data from Simpler and put it there, right? And so as you would imagine, it's like, hey, well, we have some open APIs. So I started thinking, well, we should be able to get that data and display it however we want. So I created this module, and what it does is it's going to walk through all these steps, and then we're going to get the data. So the first thing is we need to get that authorization code. Remember in the OAuth steps, and notice the URL here is just /simpler. And when I click get auth code, what this thing does is it reaches out to Salesforce. Because I had already done this earlier, it showed me that allow access screen. And I clicked yes, I want to allow access. And because I had already done that, it remembered it. And notice that Salesforce returned this to me with the authorization code, right? So I'm good, like, as far as my first step. So I say, hey, I want to get that authorization code from the query string. So I click that, and then we output that there. So the next thing I need to do is send this authorization code back to Salesforce along with the client ID and client secret, and that will do the server-side authentication for me. So notice I've got, like, my access token, and then we're going to replace all of this text. So I'm just literally going to send this back with the client ID and client secret, and then we got all of this information, right? Even told me, what my instance is. And so now I'm going to load event info. So you're not going to see anything, but what I'm doing now, and this thing is spinning at the top, I just reached out to Simpler and got a bunch of data. I did not show it on the screen yet, but then when I click start slideshow, notice what happens. We've got that brown bag lunch and learn. We've got that town hall CTO. So, our team was like, oh man, I can't believe you did this. And this is kind of ghetto programming. Yes, applause, thank you. But anyways, it just proves the point that, like, hey, even a Southerner can get data out of Simpler, when you want to. So let's look at the code that is behind this module. So on the view, I've got all of these, and I guess my Visual Studio is trying to wake up here, working on it. I'm maxing out this Surface Book here, probably going to crash the computer. So anyways, on the view, whenever it loads up, you're just going to see a bunch of labels, and those were the labels. Well, maybe it won't load up here. Those were the labels that we replaced. Well, let me see if I can go back here and see if it's already there. So yeah, let's talk about this then. So I didn't, like, refactor this and make this pretty like it should be, but I created a bunch of variables, and these are the access token, a refresh token, instance URL. So on the page here, so this get auth code button, when that button is clicked, what I'm doing is hitting that unique URL from Salesforce, and that's the one that came from that Salesforce documentation page, right? And then I'm passing in my client ID, right? And you remember where I got that client ID from, right? It was right here. So we can update this if we want to. And then I'm saying, hey, this is my callback URL, and that response type is of type code, because this is the way that we're doing it. Salesforce supports all type of different authentications. So then I'm creating a string, which is the full redirect link, and I'm just concatenating all this stuff together, saying, all right, we're going to go to this endpoint, passing in the ID, all the stuff just as it expects it, and then we're just going to that URL. So once Salesforce returns us back to the site and we have this code, I don't have to print it out on the screen, but I wanted to just, for educational purposes. So what I'm saying is when this get parameter button is clicked, I want to get that query string, or get from the query string, I want to get the authorization code, and then we're just going to update that label. And then when I click this button, which is the server-side authenticate button, notice what happens. I'm using that ID that Salesforce gave me and that client secret. And now I'm just reaching out to this endpoint, and I'm passing in that authorization code that Salesforce returned to me, as well as the client ID and secret. So it's like we reach out to Salesforce, it gives us a code, then we take that code and add it to this other stuff that we've already created in Salesforce, and that's how it understands who we are. And then we I'm doing a async call here, and I'm getting a huge JSON object back, which we saw in the Swagger docs. Well, not this one, but you remember how big that one was. And then I'm just parsing it. And I'm like, hey, this is my access token. This is my refresh token. And then I updated all the labels on the screen. Yes, Will, you do need to show me some strongly typed stuff. I apologize. I realize this is not senior level dev stuff. I'm just trying to
stop looking at Slack.
I'm just doing a proof of concept. Well, you keep sending these pictures over here. Yes, I have a ton of green squigglies. I'm sorry. At least they're not red, and it works. So anyways, what we do is I then hit this simpler endpoint, right? The same one that we've already, so I'm already authenticated. I got my access token. I'm good to go now. All we have to do is Restful Web Services. And so, I come in here and I make the request, I add in my access token, and then I'm getting back this data. And when I did this, we didn't have an endpoint that would give us back, 5 JSON objects. You had to go one at the time. So I did like event 1 and event 2, and I did the same thing over and over. And I realized, this is terrible. But essentially, we're able to, get authenticated. Well, let me stop and just ask everybody here. Do you have any questions about like the steps to go through just to be authenticated and get that data back? Does that make sense, or did I confused?
It makes total sense to me.
All right, so
Daniel, that's all you need. You're just getting 2 databases to talk back and forth, right? I mean, you're still using SQL on your Clint Patterson that's on DNN, right?
Yeah, so that's correct. And I'm not really storing any of this in the DNN database. And how did I style these buttons? This is DNN primary action. Thank you very much. But yeah, I mean, it's essentially getting DNN and Salesforce to talk to each other, not in the most efficient way. So we could, if we wanted to, we could come in here and I could update this, consumer key and secret, build it, install it, and then go through the process again. But I feel like my machine may choke down if I do that. One thing we will do is we'll go to a different page here, which I've got simpler notification. So this one is just mocking up very ugly, like a PTO request. So the first thing I'll do is log into Salesforce. So this button, so this is a different module. It goes through the same process, like give me the code, do the server-side authentication, but it does it all in one fell swoop instead of, calling all the clicks. So when I click that, notice I got the code, then it redirected, and boom, there's my access token. Now in the real world, you would take your name and email and the date and submit all that. What I'm gonna do is just go ahead and click submit a time off request. And so this is saying like, hey, this is successful. And if we come over here, this notification, that 13 will change to 14. If you time it right and the demo gods play nice, it'll do it like right now while you're talking about it. But as we all know, it's not going to do that. So it's going to take a little bit to show up. But that is an instance of like, hey, we got this external application that's not in our intranet. However, it is creating notifications in our intranet. And let me just do a refresh and see if that'll speed it up and change the 13 to 14. Jeopardy music. There it is. All right, so I think I've got Neil Mungo has submitted an expense report for approval in Concur. So imagine if somebody clicks on that, then it's going to take them, notice what it did. It brought them back to my site, and then it appended the notification ID here. So, you know, a dynamic application would be anticipating that and expecting it. But imagine that the user clicked on that, and then they went and like approved my PTO request. So now we need to get that out of the user's queue. So you'll notice that we have this notification ID. So what we're also able to do, and you can see it in the Swagger docs for notifications. See, this one says mark as actioned. So we can get a notification, and then we can say, hey, he's already done that. Let's remove it. So what I'll do here is just paste that ID in there and mark that notification as action. We'll get a success here. And then notice it has already changed back to 13, but I don't know if that one, yeah, so 2 minutes ago, it'll come in and it'll remove that from the list. So point is, you guys already know how to do all this, and that's why I'm hearing, you know, the peanut gallery over here yelling at me. But the point is, you get into Salesforce, you create this connected app, and you walk through that authentication process, then you can get out whatever data you want. Now, we have been getting data out of the simpler custom objects in Salesforce. But as we mentioned earlier, you think about Salesforce as a CRM with opportunities, leads, that kind of stuff. You can get that same data out if you want to. So that said, that's my presentation. I'm sticking to it. Anybody got questions? Thank you, Jeremy. Gifford, thanks. But yeah, for me, it was a big deal. And, you know, just being able to jump through those hoops. And then let me stop share here, and I'll turn my camera on. So hopefully we won't blow up the.
So Clint, first of all, well done. This is outstanding. And I do have a question. Okay. How can we use this to get Mark Saunders to send us the DNN summit photos?
So that's a good question. I don't know. Why is that playing in slow motion? Can y'all see that?
That's creepy, dude.
I love it, but at the same time, I started to freak out and ask you if your brother looked just like you, because I was really starting to trip there for a second.
Yeah. So
yeah, there's a guy in front of Clint.
Oh God. my Zoom is about to crash now because of that video. So if it does,
it was worth it.
I'll rejoin here in a minute.
It was worth it.
So are you all using Salesforce in there? Like your clients, is that something you would need to do?
Yeah, some of our clients use Salesforce, and we've done JavaScript simple integration, most often with trackers related to the CRM. Things that might happen around contact forms and support request forms, but it's been fun to look at what more there is that's possible that we could do.
So Ian, did I do it justice, or how terrible?
Yeah, no, good job. I mean, I think there's a massive opportunity, right, in being able to surface the data in and out of Salesforce into DNN sites as a whole, right? Definitely go look for Salesforce Workbench, because Workbench, you just log in and it just gives you a way of exploring all the Salesforce data. So although Simpler is giving you its own...
Go ahead.
So although Simpler has its own APIs, right, being native, I'm assuming all the data is stored in the Salesforce database. So Workbench will allow you to access all of the data as well as Simpler's data. So you could go and check that out. I think I've got a link. I'll dig it out and send it somewhere. But there is a way that if you're logged in, you can just quickly extract your bearer token if you want to go and play in Postman. I'll go send that to you, because that's a useful little tool, right? And you don't have to worry about all of the connected app setup in the front end.
Yeah, I saw when I was Googling in Pain, I saw people referencing Workbench and saw some screenshots. It seemed like it was like, a developer tool that would really be helpful. And so if I had to do, or if I have to do some more, I may actually, take your advice and see what I can do.
But also just, hey, I'm happy to help and give back, right? Just give me a call and I can take you through some stuff. No problem at all.
Awesome. Well, good deal. Well, hopefully that was helpful for somebody. But
do people walk around, like, is there an app for Salesforce that everybody uses and has access to all the features and functions, or is Salesforce on a local where people, 2 or 3 people have access? Or
so Salesforce, they were the original people that started the no software logo, right? So they were the original main cloud people. So it's all 100% SaaS.
Yeah.
Primarily web-based, but they do have mobile apps using Salesforce One. Clint, just the other thing, just to understand, so there are 3 ways of seeing data inside of Salesforce. You can either just use the Salesforce screens that just do it for you. If you want something more fancy, then you either build, like you said, like a Visualforce page, which is like the old school server-side rendering of a page.
Yeah.
Particularly around Classic. But when they launched to Lightning is all web API, and Lightning components and Lightning controls are all sort of more modern compliant web development standards using JavaScript and all of that. So yeah, you need to switch to Lightning, I guess, and then you can use some of those tools to see data inside of Salesforce.
Yeah, we've got Lightning components in simpler, so our components just like DNN modules, I pretty much stay on the Classic side until our overlords tell us to go to Lightning. I know that you have to, and it's like going to .NET Core.
Yeah,
eventually.
So for us, Salesforce is something that, I'm very passionate about Salesforce, do a lot of work in there. We do have an authentication module for Salesforce, so that allows people who have a Salesforce account, and that can be full users, customers, or partners, depending on their Salesforce license. Then Salesforce turns on a thing called Salesforce Identity, which allows you to log in. We do have a module, I think it's on the store. We haven't really pushed it or done too much with it, but that would allow people to log into DNN and see.
Is he muted?
You muted accidentally.
Okay, I think you hit the mute button. Ian. There you go.
Yeah, sorry, I had a call coming in. So if you use like the authentication module into DNN, then you should be able to get it's something I wanted to push more, right? You should be able to get the bearer tokens, because once you understand the identity of the user looking at the content, then you can go and ask Salesforce to display the data in their context. And that's something that we wanted to push more. We've got some stuff knocking around that. It inspired me to go and pick some more of the stuff up, actually. We even have like a content provider for Salesforce, which we wanted to be able to push out and syndicate content out into DNN and other sites. So yeah, you kind of inspired me to pick these things up again.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's time.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Clint. That was an excellent presentation. I was on pause there for a little while, taking notes and putting things in. So we're going to have a good posting for this on the So Fry website when we're all done with it. Post the video, and people can follow back through this after the fact. Thank you, Clint. Thank you to everybody. We're right here at about 8:30, so that's normally the limit of our meeting. So we're going to start wrapping up here and say thank you to everybody. We have some releases that are coming up that we need to pay attention to. We got some events in October that we should pay attention to. And in general, we've got a lot of good DNN things coming here before the end of the year that we're looking forward to. So we will see everyone again here the third Thursday in October, which if you bear with me 2 seconds, I'll give you a note on that date. Third Thursday in October is going to be the 15th of October for our next meeting. We'll see you here again in the Zoom meeting, and look forward to seeing all of our good friends here and the presentations we got ahead of us. Thank you, everybody. Good night.